The year is 700 AD. China is in the middle of the Tang Dynasty. Southern citizens of the Tang Dynasty decided to move further inland into the heart of Southeast Asia. They called this kingdom Langzang, under the rule of Fa Nagam. The territory was rich in silks, ivory, and gold. As time went on, Langzang's territory slowly depleted as the Siamese ethnic group and Burmese ethnic group wanted their own nations to represent their own people. This turned Langzang into this to this. The territory was no longer called Langzang, rather it was called the Kingdom of Vientiane. It is now the early 19th century. It was France's colonial period. During this time, France seized control of almost all of the Indochinese peninsula. In 1942, Japan briefly took control. Later that year, France took control again. In 1946, the Indochinese ethnic groups grouped together to fight the French. They ended up winning in 1954. They divided the territory into Laos, Cambodia, South Vietnam, and North Vietnam. In Laos, there was one problem though. The people could not decide on a king or a communist president. This led into civil war in 1962. 7 years prior to this war, in 1955, North and South Vietnam also broke into war. Supa Nu Vong and Ho Chi Minh supported each other. Rebels, even prior to war being declared, already started making historic communist movements. Their goal was to revolutionize Southeast Asia into a communist society. Ho Chi Minh developed a plan named after him to help support his war. This plan was the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The trail cut out of North Vietnam, down through Laos and Cambodia, and branched off into South Vietnam to either attack or to carry supplies. Backed by the Pathet Lao, Vietnam had the okay to build this trail. Back in the United States, John F. Kennedy was the president at the time. On March 21st, 1963, here is what he said.
We are always conscious of the obligation which rests upon all members of the United Nations to seek peaceful solutions to problems of this sort.
This was a blatant lie. In the early 60s, Kennedy and the American CIA developed their own plan to stop the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The plan? Ruthlessly bomb all of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. He acknowledged that communism was spreading through Laos, but did not tell the people his plan to stop it. But there's more. He sent American soldiers to the mountains of Laos to train the Hmong ethnic group who lived in Laos how to fight against the communists. Because Kennedy chose not to tell the American people about this war, it makes you wonder the transparency of the US government. Was his reaction reasonable? War finally ended and the Americans pulled out. Despite the efforts, communism still took over Laos. Hmong men, women, and children were either sent to re-education camps or slaughtered on the spot. All of the years of bombing, in constant fear, trying to save people's futures, were for nothing. My own grandparents lived through this war. Now that communism took over, they had to choose to flee for their kids' future or stay and suffer the consequences of communism.
The person that had to take the biggest sacrifice was, for me, my grandparents, because they had to make the decision to either stay or leave everything they know behind so that their family could have a better life. I think taking that sacrifice is huge, because I don't know who, maybe I saw it in one of the comments, but someone was telling me that they were here in the United States helping their parents get a passport, and the passport it asks what state and city you're from, and The only documentation that this woman had of her mom was that her mom was from Laos. She doesn't have a birth certificate. She doesn't have like any records of what her health history or anything about her life back in Laos was. So I think during the time when my family fled, they had to leave all of that behind. There was like no paperwork. There was nothing to kind of like, I don't know, record who they were. And that's really risky, especially going into a new world.
My dad's side of the family in 1980 took this risk. A year later, in 1981, my mom's family fled too. When my mom's family reached the Mekong River, this is what happened.
They hired a fisherman to take us in his boat across the Mekong River. He lied to us and said he saw soldiers and we need to jump. We all jumped. And then, we got caught for trying to escape.
They put my mom, my two uncles, my grandma, and my grandpa into a concentration camp. The back reads, "Today, I won't be able to come. I have some personal matters I must take care of. I will come back/contact you later. I'm sorry. Thank you." It was likely my grandpa who wrote this and sent this out to a close friend of his. My dad's side had more luck crossing the river and becoming Thai refugees.
My family was also captured. So I think when you sent me that, I was like, whoa, like our stories are very similar. So my grandpa built a raft. Like he spent like weeks building this raft. And like one night in the middle of the night, I think it was like 2 or 3 a.m., he snuck his entire family. At the time, his wife was pregnant. She was 8 months pregnant and he had 5 kids. So they had 5 kids and he put all of his kids on this raft and his pregnant wife, and he gets in the water of the Mekong River and like pushes them like this. My great-grandmother was able to take all of the children and my grandpa to safety, like in a refugee camp or something. But my grandma was thrown in a jail.
In the late 1980s, my mom's side of the family received a sponsor to come to the place they always dreamed of. In 1986, my dad's side of the family received a sponsorship from a church in Storm Lake, Iowa to come to America. My grandparents, who went through relentless fear, torture, and unrest, I am forever in debt to them.
Generations like us are going to make a huge change to Lao culture. I think one thing that's common in a lot of Asian culture is you don't really talk about the negative things. Like you only talk about the wins, but in like a lot of Asian culture, you don't really talk about like feelings. You don't talk about like bad things. But I feel like with our generation, we're going to be the ones to speak up. Aunties, my great uncles and aunties and my grandparents, they're very patriotic, which there's nothing wrong with being patriotic, but they haven't been able to articulate the things that they went through during their journey. They just celebrate that they made it here, which is something that should be celebrated, but something that should also be acknowledged is what they went through. And I feel like the older generation doesn't talk about that. So I think we will be the generation to change that.
What's done is done, but as the younger generation, we must not let others forget.
You're bringing this up in your history event that you're talking about. It is already showing that we are the generation that's going to speak up and tell the story.
Speaking up does not just mean making speeches. Movies like First They Killed My Father talks about a young girl who endures the effects of the secret war.
Robert D. Ray, so he was one of the governors, but they had to also flee Vietnam and Laos. And so Governor Ray brought like the entire ethnic group of Thai Dum people. They speak their own language, but it sounds very similar to Lao. And he brought the entire like group of them to Iowa. And so that way that they could preserve their cultures.
It's not just talking, it's simple acts of empathy. As of right now, Laos is still communist, but people like us can spread the word and speak on the behalf of people who are silenced, as well as people who are living in civil unrest.